She doesn't fall for the man she understands. She falls for the man who keeps her guessing, not because he plays games, not because he hides, but because his energy can't be pinned down. He's not chaotic, he's composed. He doesn't over-explain, doesn't over-promise, doesn't over-perform. He simply exists and lets her wonder. That's the man she can't read. And that's the man she can't forget. Nietzsche understood this. He knew that humans aren't drawn to what is fully known. They're drawn to the unknown that feels meaningful. Mystery isn't a trick, it's a presence. And most men don't know how to hold that presence, because they're too eager to be liked, too ready to show their hand, too hungry for validation. But the man who isn't chasing her reaction, he becomes something different. He becomes a question she wants to answer. And that desire to figure him out, that's where the obsession begins. Because when she doesn't know exactly what you're thinking, when she's not sure what you feel, when you don't fit into the pattern she is used to, you stay on her mind. Not because you're detached, but because you're centered. And that center holds power. Nietzsche believed that power comes not from being loud, but from being still in the middle of chaos. You become the eye of the storm. And when a woman meets a man like that, she feels something different. Not the nice guy who lays his heart out too early, not the insecure man who hides behind silence, but the man who knows when to speak and when not to. The man who reveals just enough and nothing more. That's not arrogance, that's structure, that's the art of mystery. And women are wired to respond to it. Why? Because mystery creates motion. It pulls her in, it opens the loop, and in her mind, she starts to ask, what's behind that look? Why doesn't he chase me? What's he holding back? That loop becomes emotional investment. And the more she invests, the deeper the attraction grows. She's not bored, she's activated. Not because you said the right things, but because you left space for her to wonder. And that space, that's where all her curiosity and all her desire begins. You can't become mysterious if you don't have depth. You can't hold back energy that you don't own. And that's the mistake most men make. They think mystery is about hiding, but hiding is fear. Mystery is control. It's knowing yourself so clearly that you, Dante, need to constantly explain yourself to the world. Nietzsche called this self-overcoming. The idea that the strongest man, isn't the one who conquers others, but the one who has mastered his own instincts, emotions, and impulses. The man who can feel deeply and still choose restraint. That's what makes you unreadable in the best possible way. Because she knows you're not numb. She can sense the intensity behind your calm, but she can't figure out why you're not giving it away. And that creates tension, the kind that makes her want more, the kind that keeps her thinking long after the conversation ends, because she felt something, but couldn't label it. That's rare, that's addictive, but none of it works unless you actually become that man. The man who doesn't reveal everything out of insecurity, the man who doesn't open up too soon just to be accepted. The man who values his inner world more than anyone's opinion of him. And here is the real secret. She doesn't need to understand everything you feel. She needs to feel that there is more than she sees. That's where the chase begins. Not when you impress her, but when she feels something she can't explain. Something quiet, something strong, something hidden just behind your eyes. That's not mystery as performance. That's mystery as a byproduct of depth. And depth comes from not giving yourself away so easily. When you walk into a room and don't compete for attention, when you listen more than you speak, when you can sit in silence with her and be completely unfazed, that's when she starts to feel it. This pull towards something deeper. And it's not about what you said, it's about what you didn't say, about how you looked at her like you could see through the noise, about how you moved with purpose, not urgency, about how you didn't chase, and how you didn't flinch when she tried to test you. Because you weren't there to be liked, you were there to observe, to choose, to be the one she can't quite read, but can't stop thinking about. To be unreadable is not to be chaotic, it's to be ungraspable. Not because you're erratic, but because you refuse to be boxed in. Women don't want a man who changes like the wind. They want a man whose stillness hides motion, a man whose calm hides complexity. That's unpredictability. Not in behavior, but in impact. She can't predict how she feels around you. One moment, she thinks she has you figured out. The next, she questions everything. And that tension, that uncertainty, that's exactly what creates emotional gravity. But here's what Nietzsche would say. Unpredictability is only powerful when it comes from principle, not from confusion, not from trying to manipulate, but from being so centered in your values that no emotional storm can shake your course. You become uncontrollable not because you're wild, but because you're unavailable to nonsense. That's why she can't read you. Not because you're playing games, but because your energy isn't reacting to hers. You're not trying to win her over. You're not dancing around her moods. You're watching, listening, choosing, and in doing so, you create polarity. You become the fixed point around which her emotional movement orbits. The more emotional she becomes, the more calm you remain. The more she pushes, the less you flinch. And now, you're not just mysterious, you're magnetic, because no one else makes her feel this off balance. Yet so drawn in, that's Nietzsche's shadow. That edge, that intensity under control. You're not doing anything flashy. You're not performing dominance. You're embodying restraint. That's what makes you unpredictable. She doesn't know what will happen next because you're not looking for approval. You're not seeking safety. You're not living in reaction. And that, in her world, is rare. That makes her curious. That makes her lean in. And the more she leans, the less you move. And that silence, that steadiness, that stillness, that's the art. That's how you become the man she can't read. Because your actions come from purpose, not permission. And purpose never chases. In the end, it's not about being unreadable to impress her. It's about being unreadable because you reached a level of internal clarity that makes external validation irrelevant. Nietzsche believed that the highest form of power is self-definition. When a man no longer seeks to be understood by others, he finally becomes himself. And that version of you, the one that doesn't rush to explain, doesn't try to fix perceptions, doesn't flinch in the face of being misread, that version of you is unforgettable. Because you're not trying to be remembered, but you will be, not by force, but by presence. She'll remember the feeling, not the words, the quiet confidence, the stillness behind your gaze, the mystery she couldn't solve, and maybe didn't need to. Because what matters isn't that she knows everything about you. What matters is that she feels that there's more than what's spoken, more than what's shown. And that more is what keeps her mind circling back, not to the man who tried to impress her, but to the man who didn't need to, the man who stayed rooted, who didn't reveal everything just to feel close, who let her experience him layer by layer, without rush, without desperation. That's the paradox. The less you say, the more she feels. The less you reveal, the more she imagines. And what she imagines is always more powerful than what you could have told her. Nietzsche's art of mystery is not manipulation, it's maturity. It's emotional independence. It's the ability to stand in your truth without begging to be seen. And when you do that, when you become the man who is at peace with being misunderstood, you Dante just become unreadable. You become undeniable. That's how she remembers you. That's how she chases you. Not because you played a role, but because you finally stopped playing anything. You simply were. And in that stillness, that restraint, that silence, she found the mystery her heart had been waiting for.